your memoir, like I would call it like a short memoir. Would you agree? This Reconstructing Labrador Villa Road. So I I find that this is such an emotional piece to me. um, like it also is, I think, very vulnerable. Hence, for the artist or the writer to able to write something like that, it's very courageous. Um, and I because I myself, I also like to put in some personal stuff into my work, so that I will actually like making my work. I have to put something of myself in it.
Yeah.
But I think that yours is almost like talking to a close friend. As a reader, when I read it, I feel that it's something like that. And so it's very straightforward and very, to me, very in your face. Whereas my art is more of even though there's something about me inside, I add other elements like fantasy stuff and all that. So there is still a little bit of distance. So I'm wondering, how do you know how much of yourself you want to reveal in your memoir? And like, going through, I know that you've gone through a workshop with Renate. Like, going through this workshop with her, was there um did she, or did you like did she help you to develop your memoir in terms of like how much to review?
Yeah. Okay. Um, wait. So, firstly, thank you so much for sharing your response to the writing. It's so yeah. When I first actually read you did like a short synopsis of what your artwork would be about. I was really, so I just felt very grateful that it evoked any kind of response, like emotional response in you. Yeah, so I do have a question about that later on for you.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because I think like you, uh, I think for me, I cannot help but write with myself in the writing because I'm not a very like, how to say, artistic or writerly person. So there's although I try to explore like creativity maybe a bit in language or in structure, at the end of the day, I find that um, the personal voice or the story inside just somehow fights its way to the surface. So I think
Okay.
that kind of like took over.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was exactly the process actually I went through, um, especially when you asked about how Verena Tay helped me to shape the story.
Mm.
Because I had wanted to be a bit more egoistic and write something more creative, playing with structure and things like that.
Mm.
I think at the first, I think it was at the first draft that we submitted to her. So she had requested just a single paragraph or a short introduction. Um, and after I had written it and I was very pleased with it, I was hoping that she would give me wonderful feedback. But in the end, it was disastrous feedback. It was so, she was like, "What on earth are you writing about? You know, your storyline or this one like idea that you're trying to explore. I don't even know what it is. It's all over the place. You're trying to cram too many things into your introduction, and I don't even know where this story is going." So it was a very disheartening like feedback session for me because I was trying to be creative, but actually it lacked honesty. Yeah.
Right.
So I think after that, I was actually stuck for quite a while because I really didn't know how to proceed because I had some kind of idea I wanted to write about, which was my childhood and my grandmother's house. But after she told me that my introduction wasn't going to work out, I didn't know what to do anymore. So that was when I realized that I needed to revisit the house physically. Yeah.
Right.
so that I could reconnect with some kind of a place, which was the point of the workshop. It was a place-based memoir writing workshop. And I realized that I had been interacting with memories all these years, and that anger that I feel is in the story was I was actually strengthening the anger based on memories, not actually based on an actual interaction with the place anymore. Yeah, um, I actually went back to the site of the house once for the first time after so many years, and that was when I realized that I just had to start recording the experience of visiting the place. And I think the story started to get written from there. I realized that there were a lot of memories and observations that came to me as I was just physically walking down the road.
That was part of your research, like the visiting the place, I
Yeah,
guess. But did you like have other types of research? Like, I mean, like, collecting other people's memories of this place, or like, did you
yeah,
do any of those?
yeah, definitely. So I could only finish writing the whole story
Right.
after about 3 visits, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even though the story is presented as just
Mm,
one walk, it was actually about 3 walks. Yeah, and then
mm,
in between, there will be new questions that I had to find answers to. Like, actually, how old was I when I did go back to the place? Yeah, so I had to talk to my mom a lot because she lived in the house.
mm,
She grew up there. I ended up talking to her younger brother, my uncle,
mm.
in Singapore also, because my mother couldn't remember a lot of details herself. In terms of like years, like the year that I was trying to pinpoint so that I could get the ages correct.
Right.
Um, so I needed to go to someone younger. Hopefully, I thought my uncle would be able to supply me with the accuracy lah, but he also couldn't remember. I ended up writing to my auntie who is they like migrated to Spain to retire in, and yeah, so basically nobody could remember anything. They only had like stories they could remember, but they can't remember like the facts in that sense. Yeah, so but the research was still fruitful for me because it reinforced, I guess, the idea that this place was an important place for them in their growing up years. Some memories were very unpleasant because Labrador actually is also near where the Japanese soldiers uh, like I think killed certain people in the Japanese occupation, or there was definitely a Japanese presence there, and certain very unpleasant things happened in that house. Um, yeah, but it was still very meaningful, I think, for all of us to talk about our memories of that place lah, and of my grandmother as well.
Wow. Sounds like it's a lot of history to
Yeah,
cramp.
it really is. Yeah, and that's why I really wanted more people to just know that it's not just this empty piece of land, or just
Mm,
because like the government doesn't like commemorate it, or you know, yeah, it
mm.
doesn't mean that it has no value. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, Sorry, I'm just looking at my next question. Um, I think like I found your writing quite interesting. At the end of the piece, you wrote something about letting go. Right. It's like you wrote something about like what did you write? Like a quieting down and accepting, and then things that are not within your control, and then you let go. Right? So uh, I realized that actually most of the piece, majority of it was about your memories, as you said just now, and like even how they are not, they're like, you know, angry memories, sad memories, how even unsure memories, and that's why I guess it's called reconstructing Labrador villa. So, but then at the end you talk about letting go, and that letting go, it's just you didn't describe much about this letting go. So I mean, as a reader, I just deduced that it's a decision that you have made. Like at that point, it's a decision that you have made. So now that 6 months has passed since you completed this work, about 6 months, how have you like been doing about or with this letting go? Like, what are your thoughts and feelings about this this stage that you are at?
Wow, okay. That's such an introspective question. Um, okay, yeah, so I think, um, okay, so the thing is that I think the letting go, yes, you are so right. It was a decision that I think I had to come to, like, arrive at. Yeah, so I think in the story I wrote that by the time I arrived at the physical destination, I was able to come to a place where I could let go, right? So it was like the process of walking along that road and like going through certain things in the past. That process enabled me to let go of like the angry feelings. And actually, I think also the anger is the inability to control and to, like, protect what is important to you, because it was taken away, right? And
Right.
the force is so large that um, you cannot protect it, because there are probably good reasons, I guess, why the land had to be taken away or whatever. It's part of some grander plan, right? So I think the anger also is like it has to do with like a kind of helplessness, like it's like I cannot control it. So things didn't go the way I wanted, which was to preserve the house. Um, so in real life, I think because the workshop lasted about a month, I think a bit more than a month, because I think it was 5 Saturdays. That was the amount of time I had to also process and keep processing it in my mind, and also I think also in my heart. And then so that time spent processing and reflecting helped me to um, come to terms, I guess, with this, like, maybe anger that I was feeling. Yeah, so that helped. And then also I realized that my memories were wrong. So you see, I think that also was part of why some of the anger actually is unjustified. So in the sense that in the sense that in the course of my very informal research, I also found out certain things about the history of the house. Like, for example, in my head, the house was extremely precious because to me, it was like the only place that my mom, for example, and her siblings had lived in for a very long time. Yeah, so the house like gains value when it's the one place that we spend so much time in, right? But actually, when I was talking to her, I realized that that wasn't the original house that they lived in. They actually moved um, from another house that was somewhere nearby, or they had to move house like twice. So this wasn't really like that one house, where they spent all their time in, and it was taken away from them. It was actually like the last part, yeah, and continued until the time I was born. So it's not actually that old a house in that sense. You see, so when I also realized this, like I discovered it, then it's not that the house decreased in importance, but it gave me a bit more perspective. I was actually getting angry at something that I didn't, it was just me getting angry at it based on my own perspective of it, but it was actually wrong. Yeah, so that was quite helpful for me also. It made me see that sometimes our perceptions are misplaced. Yeah, and
Oh,
that
that's
can also
nice.
cause a lot of like silly feelings to keep like churning and rechurning. Yeah, so it made me see the importance of knowing things accurately. Yeah, and not getting emotional for no reason at all. Yeah. So
Oh,
something like that. Yeah. Um,
wow. That's a well, that's a very I think that's quite a big insight. Like it changes your because it changes your feelings about
yeah.
a situation also, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Exactly.
place.
Yeah.
Um, I was also curious about your last sentence. The last sentence of your work, it says, through reconstructing Labrador Villa Road, I discovered my sense of place in the world where I am and also where I long to be. Uh, I I wonder if this sentence, right, is linked to your thoughts about letting go. And also because to me, this sense of I'm not sure whether this my definition of your sense of place is the same as what you meant here, but I mean like a sense of place, like where I belong and all that. I think is like it's almost like where's my purpose in life kind of question. And for me, I don't even sometimes I know what it is, like this place, sometimes I don't know. And so when you wrote something like that, I want to ask you, like, where is this place for you? Is it physical or metaphysical or whatever? And
Um,
has it got to do with what you were saying before in the letting go?
yeah. Um, yeah. So this is another question that yeah, I also wanted to ask you about, because like your interpretation of it in the ending, the closing panels, right, had like images of lotus, right? Yeah. So I wonder whether that was your interpretation of some kind of like resolution. So and I'll ask about that later. I hope I do remember. Yeah. So I think for me, yeah, my sense of place in the world that is linked to the letting go, as you rightly connected, uh, I think has to do with like a belief system. Yeah. So I think because also it's like the COVID time, so I think my life is a lot slower now with a lot more space. So I think this has also given me the opportunity to think more about my future, and also my past, but also like what my eventual future is, because yeah, because in my because I'm a Christian, right? So I get a sense that my eventual home is not in this like earthly this earthly place lah. So it helped me to also let go, because I was holding on to a physical home, which was my grandmother's house. And then I'm currently living in my like second home. So I moved once in my life. I've actually moved from Dover Road to Pasir Panjang. So I live very near my grandmother's old house, which I was so happy, uh, yeah, that I'm closer in a way to that childhood place. But the place that I'm currently living in is also where my parents used to grow up in. And that's how they met. This area is like where they met, even, yeah, and got to know each other. So when my dad relocated from Dover back to Pasir Panjang, it was very thrilling lah for me, because it's a very memorable, significant place for all of us in the family. Um, and my current area now, because of the development, we've got our neighbors are really like obsessed with getting our apartment like to go on block, so that they can sell it and earn lah what they want to earn. So the thing is that I also was wrestling with this impending loss as I was thinking about coming to terms with the loss of my grandmother's house. You see, so there's also this present um, struggle that I'm dealing with, because place means a lot to me. I think I get attached to place very easily, due to maybe my upbringing, I'm not sure, on my personality. Yeah, so to be able to come to terms with also letting go of where I'm currently living, yeah, I think I needed to have to focus on, to me, the eternal perspective, which is that actually I'm going to die anyway, right? One day my parents also are going to pass on. I can't let these uh, physical, like earthly attachments also keep like weighing me down, because I think it made me a very unpleasant person, in the sense that I would get angry very easily, and lash out and complain about, complain about the government or something, which is, I think, not healthy, and it's not like, yeah, it's not helpful either. Yeah, so I think this arriving at a place, to discover, like what you said, my sense of place in the world, I realized that I'm just a dot, in this life I'm currently living. There's a much more valuable and important place I should be rooting myself in, according to my religion, which is the kingdom of God. So I think that really helped me a lot to come to terms with what's happening. So many things beyond my control. Yeah, so this longing to be there is this longing to be in this kingdom, this kingdom of God. Yeah.
Okay. If people jump to conclusions, and it's usually because their emotions are talking, which may not be them, so just need to put it aside for a while and then reread it again. And the second time I read it, I think I start to empathize with you, the writer, more. Like I start to understand, okay, why did you write it this way? And that was when I realized that, wow, you put your heart up on the paper. That is so courageous.
Yeah, I don't think it was my intention to be courageous, but I think when I signed up for the workshop in the first place, it already looked like it would be that kind of journey, right? It's a memoir. It's a very personal piece of writing, and yeah, so I think it was inevitable in that sense. Yeah, so I think I did want to ask you about what you had written, which was what you wrote. Yeah, I highlighted it because I wanted to ask you about it. Yeah, you wrote about this onslaught that you just described, right? This onslaught of unpleasant emotions that washed over you. So I don't know, because it sounds like it might be personal territory also. But I was just wondering, I mean, if you don't share about the personal bit unless you want to, but like what kind of unpleasant emotions, did were evoked? Yeah, so like, were they very do you feel like it was like the anger and sadness that you pinpointed, and you were led to also think about your own
Yeah, I did.
your own,
I know like my own experience or something like that, right?
yeah, something.
Uh, I did feel a lot of anger, right? And the anger towards the government. That's what I the first time I read. That's what I took from it. Like, and this feeling of whether it's your intention or not lah, but this is how I read it. This anger towards the government was actually the thing that slapped me. It was like because I used to be very angry too because I used to be very angry at at the government too. Like when I was studying um and I was in Canada studying, and all this anger come from not knowing the that such history happened in our country. Like even things like people being detained in the past, like my I have relatives who were students in the student riot and they were detained and all this thing, or like your story of the house being kind of forcefully taken away. I mean, I'm sure there's recompensation, but I'm not sure if that is, equivalent, whether it is the kind of recompensation you all have expected. So things like that I didn't know happened. And I felt like, how come I do not know? I did not know that these happened. And I had to go to another country to study, like I was in Canada, and to know more about it. But this was maybe 10, 15 years ago. I mean, I don't know what in Singapore the education system is like, or it seems like people are a bit more open about it now. So I was like very angry, and then there come a point where I came back to Singapore because I still want to be in part of my own heritage. I feel more grounded here. Like people ask me, why don't you just stay in Canada? You're so angry. And I'm just like, but I feel like there's some unfinished at that time. I felt like some unfinished business, and my friends are here, my family is here, and I feel like my roots are here. So I came back, and then there must be some closure. And I think at the end, I chose to not, or I chose to not think about it too much, because on the other hand, the longer I stayed here, and because now I'm more mature in thinking, I hope, I mean, I could see what the government has done for the people, and there is, like, I don't think that things can be perfect. There's something that need to give if we want to have some form of like harmony, I guess. Some things need to give, and then at that point I don't know what is right or wrong anymore. Everything is so gray. So I choose not to be angry. But then I read your piece, and then I got angry again. So I'm just like, I hope so. So then I thought, okay, I read it later. Then I read to the end, and then I read what you wrote at the end. I thought, okay, she's not so angry also, so maybe it's okay now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me why I feel this onslaught of emotions, it's because I started remembering what I felt last time. And I dislike, actually, I quite dislike that the me that was before, who I felt was a bit arrogant and ignorant. Arrogant to think that that I have the answers, like I am right to feel angry, kind of. And also like ignorant, like both times ignorant. The first time I did not know that these things happen in my country, and then the second, and then I got angry about it, but then I also did not know, like I couldn't understand why these things happened.
Yeah.
So that's my answer.
Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, I was very aware when I started writing what I did that I didn't want this to be an anti-government piece of writing, because it's not. It's really not that at all. Like you pointed out, it was about like self-inquiry. It was about discovering myself. I think that I hope that in the end became the core of the story, because it's definitely not meant to be an anti-government rant. And I don't feel like I even blame the government for what they did in the sense, because I might not share the same values in terms of what the government chooses to emphasize or not, right, or value as much or not. But I think I can recognize, living in Singapore, that ultimately they do have the interest of the people and the nation at heart. Yeah, even if our values don't really align, but I feel like definitely they do have our interests at heart. So I really didn't mean for it to be this anti-government thing. And as you were talking, like you're talking about how like you want to move away from being that that you in the past. I also see that in myself, and sometimes you need to get older to and hopefully more mature to be able to see that, right? Like I think if I had tried to write this story 10, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, it would be an anti-government, very unpleasant piece, I think, to read. Yeah, because I think I was stuck in that kind of place. Yeah, and it might not even be anti-government sentiment. It might just be like like I talked about that helplessness, right? It's because I can't control it, or because it's like beyond what I can control, and I was actually angry at maybe my helplessness rather, and then the government just became this target.
Right.
So yeah, so it could just be like authority structures or that. Yeah, so yeah, I think we create or we write, or like for you, you draw, right? You create different things at different stages of your life. So I think definitely your sharing gave me a valuable insight into that. Like, yeah, we create different things at different stages in our lives, and
Yeah.
and hopefully the things we create give people more hope as we grow older, right?
Yeah.
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 So thank you for sharing. Um, I because yours is I was also so happy to see that it was like a comic strip. Yeah, because in like my younger days, I was into this like manga, anime, like phase.
Likewise, likewise.
So I was like, wow, this is like so, yeah, like fantastical, right? So pretty, and sometimes like the drawn images, yeah, they unhook your imagination a bit more. So I was it was such a beautiful experience, just like looking at the panels, and because you made it like wordless, that was so precious, because yeah, then it doesn't like constrict, right? The way people interpret what's happening as well. So yeah, can you share a bit about how you decided to settle on this medium? Is it called a medium of the comic strip?
I'm also not sure. Maybe, but I I have always been reading comics. Even today, I'm still reading graphic novels and stuff. And I'm also a big fan of picture books.
Oh, okay.
Um, and animation. Yeah, I'm still watching animation today. The reason why I decided to make it into a comic is because it's actually just simply because I'm into comics. Recently, I'm into um, drawing comics, like thinking about drawing comics for zines, and then also like, and recently the library had a series of zine workshop, and I participated on, and I think that
Oh, okay.
kind of also like sparked this inspiration of drawing comics, um and so, and also, yeah, so I mean, even though I've been reading comics almost all of my life, but it's only recently that I think about drawing comics and using comics to express things that happened in my life. So when your memoir came along, I thought, a comic would be a good uh, a good way to present my response. And also because since it's going to be in the library, I wanted, and I decided to make the comic into a accordion comic book, right? Instead of a book, it's accordion. And that is also because I really like print and books, like print stuff and
Yes.
books, yeah, paper. So it isn't a lot of there, there isn't a lot of concept behind it. It's just because I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Then if you are, I mean, I elaborate a little more about how I came up with the idea of having like four strips,
Okay. Yes. Yes.
four comic strips. I This is just my process. Okay, I read through your paper. Sorry, your memoir, and then I wrote down, like, I labeled, like, okay, this is what emotion, that is what emotion, and this is what happened, that's what happened. And then I kind of consolidated them into 4 parts, which is, I thought, from you starting your walk at the Labrador Road, Villa Road walk, and then it started from, there's this sense of resolution. It seems to me that the writer is resolute about walking down this road, like kind of like untangling some thoughts, right? This resolution to want to do it, because if you don't want to do it, it's not going to happen. But so you must be you must have the intention. So that's why the first strip is about resolution. I think the second one was tenderness. It's kind of like your memories. You start to remember some memories of your grandma, the house, some warm memory. And so the second one was about tenderness. Yeah, the second one was about tenderness. And then the third one was tumult, because I also see there was a quite a large part about being angry and unhappy about the situation, unhappy about the situation. So there was a script. There was a strip about tumultuous kind of feelings. And the fourth one was Pathfinder, and that was inspired by your last paragraph, the last 2 paragraphs actually. This like looking, kind of like figuring out your way, and kind of like, maybe that's why a pathfinder, right? Looking for a path, embarking on this path that you have found, kind of like that. Yeah, that's what consists of these 4 strips. And along with, I mean, your memoir was like a how do I say it? Like something that gave my work some structure, like this 4 strips. Then I also put in some of my own memories, or my own feelings. Like the grandma there could be my grandma also, you know.
I
That dog could be my dog. Like, I mean, like, you know, I think the picture on tenderness, right? I put in a Milo, because I always drink Milo when I was a kid. There's a blanket and a bolster, because I had a blanket and a bolster in my grandma's house. So part of my childhood is inside there too. Yeah. The last part you briefly asked me just now, it is that it's a bit about coming to terms, as your last paragraph is about. It's about coming to terms. That's why you started off looking a little bit glum. The main character started off looking a little bit glum, and then after that, she was like kind of like buried under the soil, and then she started to sit straight, and then she looks like she was meditating. She is meditating, and then slowly, like a thorny vine grew out of her, and she started to climb the vine up to the surface where there's a pond, right?
Okay.
Like I mean, it's not a very straightforward strip, in the sense that it's not like square. You just need to read from left to right. It is. Yeah, it is where some squares are bigger and some are smaller, and then sometimes you need to some things are combined, and you just need to use your imagination and visual knowledge to figure it out. And it was and this is also why I wanted to draw the comics, because I was inspired by a comic artist who did who drew in a way that is not how we usually see comics, which is just squares and left, right?
Yes.
Buying stuff, and
wow.
And the layout, the way the multiple possibilities of laying these things out is so exciting for me. So I decided to do something like that, and so that's why in the last strip, the one that's called Pathfinder, you see the girl climbing up
Yes.
the center piece, which is a pond of lotus flowers, right?
Yeah.
So she's crying out of her own, like her own peat.
Oh, I see.
It's
Wow.
but that's fine. I mean, I don't, as an artist, I don't really ask viewers to read the art the way I read my art. Like, you can read it a different way, and if you read it in different ways, that like is all the more better, because part of the reason why you read it in a different way is because you have a different experience and a different way of looking at like visual stuff. So, but that's how I read it lah. How I read my own art.
That's okay. I really wanted to ask you about that. Like, yeah, like how to say, how maybe you would read your own artwork, right? So I think I was stuck because my piece is obviously linear. It's just a forward journey, and I loved how you phrased it, that it was like the resolve to walk the path. So, I mean, in practical terms, we were all forced to walk our own path with writing the memoir, because Verena was she's a, she's really good at making sure that you submit your work. And it's like, yeah, so you are forced to like produce something week on week. So that was really helpful. So in a way, I was forced to confront whatever story was inside me and that needed to be written. So I was a bit stuck when I saw yours, because I was also expecting that it would be some kind of a linear, like each strip was a part of the story. But now that you've explained it, I can see that it's more a depiction, right? Like of emotions or a theme that you
It's
describe, something
a
like that.
yeah, a
Yeah,
theme, emotional,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, and I was really confused actually by the last part. As in, it was so, I feel like it's so evocative because your color scheme and then the layers, but I couldn't really make sense of what was happening. And then when I saw the vines growing out of the girl,
Right.
that felt very like uncomfortable. Like, why are vines growing out of her body, So I really, yeah, it just made me a bit uncomfortable. But now that you have explained it, it's so beautiful, like the process that the character went through. Like I love how the rain kind of like pushed her underground. you know,
A little bit like yeah,
like,
you
yeah,
can,
because
yeah.
I couldn't make out whether, because it's 2D, right? I couldn't make out whether she was underneath all those layers, or the soil was like it could be like soil, sea, and then like sky, So I couldn't see, yeah, whether it was yeah, like horizontal or vertical in that sense. So now I know it's meant
Oh,
to be, yeah, she's underground, and that's
you,
amazing that she climbed out of the
yeah,
vines
yeah.
coming out of her own body. It's like,
Kind of like you got to use your imagination lah.
yeah,
Like I thought that she was being buried by like soil and water after many years, maybe, of dawdling.
yeah. In some sense, yes.
So, but you know the last two pictures on the bottom right hand part of this particular, the last piece that we are talking about, the picture of an image of her with her hand over her heart. Is it her right hand? Yeah, her hand over her heart. And then the last one of the house.
Yeah,
The house is actually a link to the first first strip, which
yes,
is about, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, like now the door is previously in the first strip you see
the
that
dog.
the door is closed, but it is kind of like slurping something up from the top of the roof,
Yeah,
which is a lip. Yeah. So in the first piece, the girl was kind of like, okay, I'm resolute, right? I'm gonna like look into my issue. He opens up this little capsule.
yeah, yeah,
Imagine, I am imagining that the capsule is her issue. Okay, she opens it up, and like an egg, everything in the egg fell into this, fell through, first you see a a lot of things happening inside this liquid, and then it went into a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things in the liquid is more like her thinking about, should I go for it? Oh, what's this?
Ah, I
the
see.
like what's this ugly eye, scary eye look at me? It's kind of scary, and
Yeah, yeah.
thinking about it, and then she decided, okay, I'm going through. And then she dives down into the house.
Okay. Oh, she dives down into the house. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, my drawing skills are not that fantastic yet, so I just draw, but and that's my interpretation of my own work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a few more questions about
uh,
because it's
I
so
think got
late.
time.
Yeah.
There's still time. Yeah.
Is there still time? Okay. Thank you. Like okay, so I thought it was so okay, yeah. I was trying to understand the lips that you now have identified on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely because I feel like it's like in a way like giving. I mean, I could interpret it as like giving voice to something that
You could. Yeah.
right had been like I've been sitting on for a long time or whatever. But I was really taken by the images of the childhood, how in so in some respect they are like shared memories of any Singaporean, who went through growing up in Singapore within a certain time frame. Some of the little things that you drew were so familiar, and yeah, that was such a connecting moment I felt. So my questions are like, is it a cracked bowl that all these childhood, this is the second strip, right?
Yeah.
So it's a
The
crack bowl. So
the
what's the crack bowl for? And then another one is I don't know if like you talked about liquid. So were you intending for like a marine or aquatic kind of theme?
I wasn't thinking about
Oh,
that specifically. I wasn't thinking about a marine or aquatic
oh,
like that. I just happened to draw them.
okay.
But the bowl is cracked. Yeah, right. It's To me it was holding a lot of memories, right? Whether they're real or not. I mean, memories are constructed by us.
Yes,
There's like false and facts and not facts.
exactly.
um, so it's really the girl's memories and her maybe what's stored inside her sadness, happiness, her
Mm,
anger, whatever. Uh, so she and her grandma hugged, right? And then from her flow out all these things. And then it exploded in the next picture, in the next street, on the left corner, it exploded. Like it can't hold anymore.
okay,
Yeah. So there is this like that's why the third strip is called Tumult.
okay.
Exploded and it flew to this burning sun
Ah,
solar things. It becomes a bit sci-fi.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
And things burn up. Even my dog fell into it,
Mm,
and it burns, and then I guess there's a sense of, okay, now all my so my feelings are just going to explode and like just come out, right?
yeah,
And with that opportunity of letting all these feelings out,
yeah.
then there is, after I'm depleted, for example, after I'm depleted, then there is a chance for me to re uh, revive, to be
Wow.
revived, something like that, or not just like not really revive, more like, okay, then I'll be able to calm down and then slowly think about it. It's basically just like me reading your memoir the first time, and then kind of like put it aside, and then I can't take it anymore. Then after I took it back, I read it again the second time. Because the first time I was really, I think I just switched I was reading on my phone, and I just like, I can't take it, I just switch it off.
Yeah, yeah. Can I just
Yeah.
share one response? Yeah, I really love that you chose. I mean, or maybe it was just what you felt, right? That idea of explosion and to give relief to the tumultuous emotions, right? There was truly one significant moment when I felt that kind of like a catharsis, right? It's like a catharsis. So I had actually gone back, I think on my second, or maybe even the third walk, maybe the second walk, yeah, back to the house. And I just decided to just be quiet and listen to the birds and all that, and the insects. And I really tried to imagine the forest talking to me. And I really, yeah, and I really felt like the land was telling me that I don't need you to protect me. You know, I really felt like I heard that voice, you know, like it's like, what are you worrying about me for? It's like, even before your grandma stayed in this place, there were already probably so many things that could have been happening here, and those memories are just there in the ground or in that space, and you didn't know about that either. And you know, your family went to build their own house over it, and you know, maybe built over those previous memories. So there's so many things that I actually am not aware of and not informed of. So I really felt like that was a cathartic moment for me. Like I could let go of this maybe like self-absorbed desire to want to protect things, you know, because it was not needed. The land didn't need it. It's its own independent, rich, fertile space. So yeah, it was definitely. I mean, definitely, I feel like we share that cathartic release.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like sometimes we look at things. I guess we are living in our own mind, our own self, our own bodies, but actually, in the bigger scheme of things, we're just really a very small, small blip, a small blip.
Exactly. Yeah.
But to us, of course, we are a big
Yeah.
thing, because it's
Yeah.
our lives, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. You gave so many insights in your sharing too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise, really. So grateful for this chance to just talk and get to know each other.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, both of you, for your very wow authentic sharing. Is there anyone who wants to add anything to T.Shuxia's and Emily's sharing? Okay, I think there's some messages in the chat.
Oh,
Let's take a look. Oh, okay. Sorry, killer music. Killer music, very appropriate. I want to share I think one thing that two things that I noted down as I was listening to both your dialogue, and a moment of really several moments of being touched. I think one thing I noted down was that when Emily was starting to share Emily was starting to share, and then T.Shuxia a question, right, in your excuse me, T.Shuxia, in your interview question to Emily, and then when Emily was starting to share her responses, I noted down this activation of collective memory and restoration through one person's desire, which is Emily's desire for healing through research. So whether or not you were actually you mentioned you were actually trying to make something happier, right? But then it authentically go back to something that's really meaningful for you. So your need uh for finding out about this and being very authentic to yourself about it through your research, then T.Shuxia managed to, and I think a lot of us here managed to kind of through your authentic sharing and research, we are also healing our own, I guess, whatever other little pains that we have. And then the other thing that I noted down towards the end is as T.Shuxia was sharing, and then again, like, it's because of your authentic sharing, Emily, that T.Shuxia was able to also T.Shuxia did share with us when she first started reading, because we had a little conversation between the artists about like, hey, so you know, how was your memoir? What do you think about your memoir? And she did say, I had to put it down for a while. So whatever she said here was when she was going through, and then she was trying to work through her emotions. So there was really a lot of emotion going through it when she was creating her work. So how authentic creation can allow and cause emotional revelations by audiences' own interaction. So I mean, works are has so much authenticity that is revealed through it, especially through this sharing. I think we all can get a little bit more insight that it's very thing we're all very grateful for your sharing.